Hello, everyone. I'm Jackie Luca, Regent of the El Redondo Chapter NSDAR, and I hope you enjoy seeing a bit about El Redondo's history and its people. It has truly been an honor for me to serve as Regent during this 75th anniversary year. The chapter has evolved in recent years in many ways while continuing to build on those programs near and dear to our hearts. As we continue to honor the chapter's history and past passions, we are taking to heart our new state regent, Sharon Moss's theme, growing together in friendship and service to God, home, and country. We continue to honor and support active duty personnel by sending packages and cards to active duty servicemen and women. We support veterans programs through donations to those served by the Long Beach Veterans Administration, including Operation Santa, the Veterans Baby Shower, miscellaneous donations when requested, and by signing and sending thank you cards for various holidays throughout the year. We also actively support Race Across America and Honor Flight Southland. We support and encourage future leaders through JROTC, DAR Good Citizens, and our chapter scholarships, and have increased the number of scholarships we have awarded every year to graduating seniors. We emphasize conservation through our conservation minutes during our meetings and donations to Penny Pines. In spite of the constraints over the past couple of years due to the pandemic, we still had a chance to see each other on Zoom and in person, and we were able to honor our good citizens, our outstanding cadets through JROTC, and our chapter scholarship winners. We were able to pay our respects to our veterans on Veterans Day and Memorial Day, and to lay wreaths at the Los Angeles National Cemetery for Wreaths Across America last December. We also were able to donate items to veterans and active duty personnel at various times during the year and had a good time and fun with each other while we were doing that. I hope you enjoy the video we put together containing interviews, photos of past events, and of our wonderful current and past members, and that it helps you appreciate how we started and what we have accomplished over the years. It was fun for me to see some of the wonderful times that have been in the past and to look forward to the future. In my relatively few years as a member of El Redondo chapter, I have come to love the members of our chapter and appreciate all that they do to support and thank our veterans and active duty personnel, encourage our young people through JROTC, Sea Cadets, and to promote education for our local high school students. Please enjoy this look back on old friends and events. Some of those members and friends are still with us here. Some have moved to other locations, and some are no longer here in person, but they still live in our memories. Here's to El Redondo chapter, NSDAR, and many more years of service, patriotism, and friendship. Thank you.
The South Bay area of Los Angeles is made up of a diverse group of towns, cities, and communities, each with its own distinctive personality. These communities form the foundation of the membership of the El Redondo chapter NSDAR. Our members come from all of these communities. Each member comes with her own personal history, but also with a common connection to those brave men and women who helped create the United States of America. Over the years, El Redondo has had one member who became state regent and a national officer, and many members who were involved at the state and district level as officers and committee chairs. (1947). World War II had recently ended and people were getting back to their former lives. Servicemen were returning home, starting families, buying homes. Mahatma Gandhi began a march for peace in East Bengal. Pan American Airlines offered the first round-the-world airline ticket. In February, a chemical mixing error caused an explosion, destroying 42 blocks in Los Angeles. In July, reports are broadcast that a UFO has crash-landed in Roswell, New Mexico. In October, the first telephone conversation between a moving car and an airplane takes place. My, how the world has changed. On February 2nd, 1947, according to handwritten notes, a group of ladies met at Miss Bernice Venable's home in Redondo Beach for the purpose of furthering the organization of a chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution in the South Bay area. The meeting was in the nature of a George Washington tea. Women were welcomed at the door by Miss Margaret Mavity, dressed as Martha Washington. Discussions were held as to filling out papers for membership and the methods to be followed to get them into the proper hands. The cost was $5 initiation fee and $5 for dues for the year. 6 state officers were present: the state regent, state chaplain, historian general, state corresponding secretary, state organizing secretary, and state registrar. On April 10, 1947, Jackie Robinson signed a Major League Baseball contract with the Brooklyn Dodgers organization. Also on April 10, 1947, on the society page of the Palos Verdes News was the following article: DAR meets in Manhattan home. Those interested in the formation of a chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution in the South Bay met at the home of Mrs. Richard D. King, 1825 Manhattan Avenue, Hermosa Beach, on Saturday, March 22nd. Mrs. Margaret Mavity, who has been chosen by the group as their organizing regent, called the meeting to order at 2 p.m. and announced that the following officers were to serve with her: Vice Regent, Mrs. Peter Bartmus; Recording Secretary, Mrs. Bessie M. Smith; Corresponding Secretary, Mrs. Kathleen R. Schaefer; Registrar, Mrs. Walter E. Mall; Chaplain, Mrs. Royal H. Borman; Librarian, Mrs. Owens Austin; Treasurer, Mrs. Frances J. Hines. 3 committees were formed: one to select and present a number of suitable names for this new chapter, another to draw up suitable bylaws, and a third to handle advance publicity. Mrs. Bartmus presented an article from the publication of the National Society DAR on various aspects of communism. Mrs. James Rogers presented a short history of our national flag and read an article of flag etiquette prepared by Mrs. Owens Austin. At the close of the meeting, tea was served by Mrs. Richard King and Mrs. Ava Young, hostesses. The next meeting would be held on April 26 at the home of Mrs. Evelyn Stein, 2733 Via Campesina, Palos Verdes. The organizing members received the California State Charter No. 103 on May 19, 1947. The members chose El Redondo, Spanish for round or circle, to describe the semicircular shoreline of the Santa Monica Bay, along which the then small towns of El Segundo, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, Palos Verdes Peninsula, Redondo Beach, and Torrance were scattered. At one time, all this territory formed a part of the domain of 75,000 acres, given as a land grant to Juan José Dominguez in 1784 by the King of Spain for his faithful service to the crown. Thus, the name of the chapter, El Redondo, links the present to the past and to the colorful days of California under the flag of Spain. The chapter was the recipient of the Freedoms Foundation at Valley Forge Award for outstanding community programs in 1976. 3 El Redondo chapter NSDAR permanent markers have been installed. The first was placed in 1976 for the bicentennial of the United States at Alondra Park in Redondo Beach. The second was placed in 1988 at Constitution Park in El Segundo. The third was placed in the spring of 2014 at the South Entry Walk to the Upper Plaza of the Redondo Beach Veterans Memorial in Redondo Beach. One of our regents, Martha Burnham Hanley, served as regent from 1976 to 1977 and 1978 to 1980. She also served as California State Regent from 1990 to 1992. She then served as NSDAR Organizing Secretary General from 1998 to 2001. During her term as State Regent, one of Mrs. Hanley's favored projects was the California State Headquarters House and Grounds in Glendora. The yard was landscaped to incorporate elements of an early 1900s garden. 2 rose gardens were planted. Red and white azaleas and camellias were placed along the east face of the house. Cost of the initial landscape project was $21,000, and $23,000 was raised in the first year. The interior of the house was also redecorated and repaired. Mrs. Hanley put great effort into building the Headquarters House Endowment Trust Fund, which grew to more than $73,000 during her tenure. The DAR schools also received great support during that time. In addition, the California Madonna of the Trail in Upland, badly damaged by earthquakes, needed extensive repairs. Although not planned for, the State Society contributed $15,000 during the Hanley administration towards the repair and refurbishment of the Pioneer Mother statue. El Redondo chapter has had 42 women serve as chapter regents since its beginning, each one with her own approach to leadership and program interests, but all tied together by a common overall purpose and mission.
I've been a DAR member for 63 years. Joined in 1959 at the John Greenleaf Whittier. My mother was regent, Marguerite Tomlinson, at that time, and she needed a junior member. In those days, you had to have a junior member to make gold honor roll. So I belonged to the Whittier chapter for several years. And I could never go to the meetings because I was living in Hermosa Beach at the time, and I was teaching school at Lila Village in Westchester. So I resigned from teaching after a while and started to raise a family. My mother said, well, you should really transfer down to a chapter near you. So I looked into what was around, and it was El Redondo. So I joined El Redondo, and they were meeting in the conference room at the Bank of America that was down at Redondo Beach. And I went to about 3 meetings, and then they said, oh, you must be second vice regent. And I said, I can't. I have 3 little boys that are under 4 years old. I'm too busy. Oh, no, everyone will help you. So they talked me into it. So that was the Colonial Luncheon. And we had it at the Redondo Beach Women's City Club. And most of the members played bridge then. So we set up about 10 or 12 bridge tables. And then I was treasurer for a long time, I think about 6 years at least. And then after I was treasurer, they said, well, you should really be regent. So I was regent in 1981 to 83. And during I was regent, I went to all the state conferences, and I went back to Washington National Convention the 2 years. And when I was regent, in those days we had Good Homemakers Award. And the girls in high school, they had sewing. So I went up to the high school, and the teacher gave me one of the garments that she thought was best that the student had made. And it was a lovely suit. But of course, the conference was in Northern California. So I had to carry that up there. And in the room they must have had 50 different entries of different clothes. And the members, they pawed through and looked at them all. And I thought, oh, please don't let anything happen to this lovely suit. And I don't think she even got a prize. She might have gotten honorable mention. But anyway, I got it home and back safe. And after I was regent, I was Southern Council manager for 2 years.
So you have been, a wonderful member and contributor, and I mean, you did the whole thing. You did kind of the chapter service and state service and recruited people in. So you did the whole thing.
Yeah, I was busy, but I enjoyed it. I mean, I made a lot of nice friends. The more involved you are, the more you enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Patricia Hine, one of your El Redondo chapter past regents. So how did I become interested in joining DAR? Well, in 1982, my father handed me a DAR application and asked me to sign it. Over the past 40 years, I've met so many wonderful ladies and made so many memories. At the time, I was living in Sunnyvale, so I joined the Gaspar de Portola chapter. They asked me to be corresponding secretary, and I got the bug. I moved to the South Bay, and in 1987, I transferred to the El Redondo chapter, serving as regent from 91 to 1992, which was honorary chapter regent Martha Hanley's second year as California state regent. What a year that was. The State Society was celebrating the California DAR Centennial, 1891 to 1991. The quincentennial of Christopher Columbus, the bicentennial of the Bill of Rights, the centennial of Redondo Beach, and the 50th anniversary of the USO. We were also honored to present Martha Hanley with her 25-year member certificate. Prior to my term as El Redondo chapter regent, I was your corresponding secretary, second vice regent, and first vice regent. As first vice regent, I compiled biographies of our chapter members and their ancestors. A copy of that booklet, titled Patriots Now and Then, Our Members and Ancestors' Heritage, is in the DAR Library in Washington, D.C. When my term began as chapter regent, Sarah Schultz and I worked with the chapter board to relocate our chapter meetings from St. Andrew's Presbyterian on PCH to St. Francis Episcopal Church. The new location was easier to access from the parking lot, had a small chapel for our memorial service, the large room for the colonial luncheon, and a smaller, quaint room for our monthly meetings. At the time, our chapter had 125 members. The chapter theme was New Pride in America's Historic Past. Members took a bus trip to the Huntington Library and Botanical Gardens, where we enjoyed an exhibit on the creation of the American Bill of Rights. Constitution Week was celebrated at the Court of Liberty at Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills. I thoroughly enjoyed our chapter programs. A philatelic sales clerk spoke on postage stamps, commemorating Christopher Columbus. The USO executive director spoke on the Hollywood Canteen. We learned about the Madonna of the Trail and the pioneer mothers of the covered wagon days. A representative from the Southern California Edison Company gave us an interesting history on the big red cars. An air traffic controller spoke on women in aviation from Amelia Earhart to the present. And a representative from the National Archives Pacific Southwest spoke on locating our ancestors at the National Archives. We collected pennies for the U.S. Forest Service Penny Pines Project, Campbell soup labels, blue chip stamps, S&H green stamps, Thrifty green stamps, Betty Crocker coupons. We also sent coupons to our Americans overseas. While I was chapter regent, I was also the California State Society, CAR, senior state president. It was an interesting state conference for me, as I was also personal page for State Regent Martha Hanley. I was switching sashes throughout the weekend. That state conference, I was also honored to become the California and Southwest Division Outstanding Junior. I did not take a second one-year term as chapter regent, as I felt it was easier on the regent and the chapter to be aligned with the state two-year term. I would especially like to recognize my officers, Carolyn Bushnell, Sarah Schultz, Bliss Pinkerton, Nancy Wagner, Mary Buddha, Sue Harding, Zora Selican, Sarah Fandy, Mary Pitts, Bonnie Brown, Jane Kemp, and Hazel Miller. Since being regent of the El Redondo chapter, I have been regent of the Atlanta chapter and organizing regent of the Liberty Hill chapter, both in Georgia. It's very rewarding. Don't hesitate to take the position. You'll have support from your board members and chapter members. We are all volunteers and can do a little or a lot, but as a whole, we can accomplish so much. Happy 75th anniversary, El Redondo chapter. Love you.
I joined in 1986, and I received a telephone call from the current regent at the time, and she said, "Are you Carolyn Bushnell?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Are you interested in Daughters of the American Revolution?" And I said, "Yes." And we carried on this conversation for a period of time, and then she said something that I didn't recognize. And so I said, "Wait a minute." Turns out she called the wrong Carolyn Bushnell. Apparently there was another Carolyn Bushnell somewhere around town. And so ultimately she never could find that other person, but she invited me to the chapter meetings, and the rest is kind of history from there. Because I was very enthusiastic. I think the first time I heard about DAR was like a freshman in high school. And so I was really very interested in it from that point forward. The favorite thing that I did when I was regent, nobody had done it that I had noticed before, and that didn't make any difference, but I incorporated what I call the presidential moment, or patriotic moment, or something like that. And I would ask questions, and I have an example of 3 of the questions that I used to ask, but I would find different ones every week, and I would see who knew the answers, just because it was a fun thing to do. And one of those questions would be something like, who was the youngest president that we've ever had? Who do you think it was?
John F. Kennedy or Teddy Roosevelt? Teddy Roosevelt.
You're right, because of the way I phrased the question. You are correct. If you had said John Kennedy, that would have been wrong. He was the youngest elected president. Teddy Roosevelt was younger than Kennedy, and he became president when McKinley died. So that's the difference between elected and assuming the job as from vice president on up. Who was the president that after he was president, he went back to serving as a representative in the House of Representatives for the balance of his life?
Wow, that one I don't know.
That would John Quincy Adams. He went back into the House of Representatives.
Wow.
He was elected in, of course, it was elected office. And then who was the president who ultimately, after his presidency, was appointed as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court? Tough questions, some of them, huh?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who was.
Howard Taft. William
I was going to say Taft.
Yep,
But
William Howard Taft.
yeah, okay.
That's right. Anyway, that's the kind of thing that I used to do, because I think that's like a lot of fun. And some of the other questions would be like, why do we have a 21-gun salute? Why isn't it 36 or 7 or 21? I mean 25. Why is it 21?
I give up.
If you take the numbers 1776 and add them 1776, that's 21.
Wow.
And so that's how we came about having a 21 gun salute. So those are some of the memories, and it would spark conversation amongst others about different things like that. And it was just a fun way to learn some history.
What would you say to current members who are thinking about taking a leadership role in the chapter?
I would say go for it, because there are so many members in DAR, both in our chapter and in the state officers boards always, that are more than happy to help, give assistance wherever it's needed. And to me, that's the greatest thing. It's a learning experience. I mean, where else are you going to get an experience where you're going to get this kind of support? You won't get it in the business world, that's for sure. And so I think if somebody has an opportunity to do so, go for it. Learn from it. I'll tell you, I just love that state house. It's, for those that don't know, it's a craftsman style home, and it's over 100 years old. And we, being the Daughters of the American Revolution, are about the sixth or seventh owner of the house. It's gone through a series of ownerships. And I've been a docent there for over 20 years now. I'm one of the original, I suppose I'm the last original docent. But I think it's really a unique place, and it was such a wonderful idea for the people who decided, who are members, our leaders at the time, who decided to find a state house. Because when we have meetings, people from up north can come down, they can stay all night, they don't have to go into the big hotels. Yes, there's a little fee because somebody's got to pay to launder. We got to launder water, electricity, and stuff like that. So I think it's just a very small type of a fee. But it's such a great opportunity to get together, stay all night, have a lot of camaraderie, as well as the business that you are tending to at the time. And I particularly enjoy it because I've had many positions on the board, but I think my favorite one has been buildings and grounds. And we most recently went through a renovation of sorts of the house. It was about $250,000 renovation, huge. And I was fortunate to have been trusted to be in charge of that. I have a huge construction background, so I think that's why I was the one chosen. And I don't know, it was just a marvelous experience helping to put all that together and saving that house, because even part of the roof was gypsy. So we had to crank it up, put it up, get some supports in, do all kinds of fun stuff. To me, that's fun stuff. We do so much for others, and it doesn't matter what your talent is, because we have over 50 committees that you could belong to, and you could help us to serve others. And I just, to me, that's one of the greatest things people can do, is help others.
Well, my mother was concerned about where she had come from, and people in her home community said she should become a member. So, of course, her concept of membership was me and my family. So here I am. She started off with a false lead, but a minister who spent his retirement years in the community brought his interest in genealogy, particularly of his wife's family, because she, like my parents, were many generational residents of the community. So there was a lot of genealogy meat on the table. I think I just sort of drifted into it. I was asked to do things for other offices before I became regent. Anticipation was very important because this was at the millennial turn. What was the year 2000 going to do to the world, the computers, and the DAR? And what did it do? Absolutely nothing. But anticipation was very great, and it was interesting to watch. Well, obviously, the centennial roll, the new calendar, and all that that brought with it. Those are probably the most lasting things. I'm not a great one for hanging on to memories of special events. It's a challenging organization. One should never think that it's cast in cement to always be that way, because it's not. I look at it as a living organism that responds to societal changes and other kinds of things. Obviously, their national headquarters being right across the street from the backyard of the White House makes you an extremely political, in the generic sense of political, organization. And the reach is monumental, because if you are not really genetically oriented, you don't even realize you belong there, or you have an opportunity to join until it's unfolded for you, or you unfold it yourself. And it's a huge, I don't want to say blessing, I don't want to say responsibility, honor maybe, but it is a huge honor to know that you are a part of a family.
How long have you been a member?
It's almost 50 years. I joined in 75. All of my life in elementary school, high school, and college, I loved to learn about American history. And I had no idea it was such a strong drive in me. And I just connected it to, well, I liked history. And then I discovered with the DAR, a great grandmother of mine and a grandmother who died when my father was young, were both DAR. And so I found their stuff. And then I had a relative who had joined in Illinois and Chicago, hadn't stayed active, but she had the material filled out that took one of my ancestors back to getting in. And so my sister and I were crazy about research, and she stayed in the Chicago area, and I came out here because I lived here as a teenager and I loved California weather. And so I came out here and we met every summer until I had to stop this running around. And all over the US, we would pick a county and an area. We were in more tiny town country courthouses that let us dig through all the big old records and that. And it just grew.
What led you to become regent?
I heard from various people for a couple of years before I decided as a teacher I had enough time to do it. And so, yes, I was encouraged. Well, I always had a soft spot for historical sites. And I always had a big soft spot for preservation in small towns in California or other places in the US where great things happen, cemeteries waiting to be discovered and stuff like that. So I just loved history. I represented El Redondo at National for like 23 years. on my own time and my own expense and all of that. And I just got inspired back there when I would meet people from different states and that, and finding their excitement, was always a worthwhile thing. And so I was always running into DARs that were so dedicated. Yeah.
That's
You have to
nice.
find a place for it in your life. Otherwise, you're too busy
Right.
to take care of a regent's job. But I always had been president of so many different groups. I knew how to sort of split my time away and concentrate when I needed to get ready for something.
Do you have any, well, you kind of just said it, which is not just for the regent, but for everybody who's a member, they should take the time to go to Continental Congress and see what that's all about. And
They would love it. I've encouraged people, and a few others have in the last few years. And it is expensive. And that, but you get so inspired. And then they have the national, they have the committees, the national level, so people from different states that have been state chairman in those areas. I mean, there was always meetings to go to. And then when you hear from other people, you go, oh, I never thought of that. You get so excited. You have to find time for it. So take on something small if you don't want to jump right into the heavy stuff, and chair a group, chair an Independence Day or chair something else. Everybody's appreciated. And everybody has relatives and other people that take their attention, but you got to squeeze a little area for it if you love it. Yes, you meet the nicest people. You really, really do. Generally, the people that volunteer their time to take on parts of different chapter jobs, they generally like people if they want to get involved.
how did you first get interested in DAR?
Well, I think it was probably through Francis Booth. Francis Booth, years ago, they used to play bridge, actually at the Presbyterian Church over on PCH. And I think somehow I played bridge with them several times. They had these bridge parties, fundraiser sort of thing. And then I guess I decided to join after that. I was always interested in genealogy, so I knew a lot about my ancestors. And then, of course, through the years, I accumulated, I have 9 ancestors, actually. Wow. But it took me quite a few years to locate all the information on all these people. Right. But my original one, I didn't go in on her, but I have a pin from my great-grandmother, a DAR pin, and her name is on the back.
Wow, that's nice. It's very special.
My great-grandmother was one of the very early DAR. She went in at 1898 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
What led you to become regent? Was it like a natural progression?
Yeah, I think it was just a natural progression. Mm-hmm. I was on all these different committees, and then eventually I was the vice regent, and then I became the regent.
Nice. Do you have a favorite memory or a favorite part of the job when you were regent?
Well, I think the most favorite thing that ever happened is when we gave an award to this man who actually lives in Torrance, I think, who traced early routes through the mountains. I don't know, there was some kind of historical award, but he retraced some early paths over the Tejon Pass. Anyway, and so the state regent came, and we had it at the May meeting, where everybody, has it's a luncheon. And I remember the state regent was sitting next to me, and the vice regent, the state regent and the vice regent came because they were really impressed with this whole thing. And so I'll have to admit, that was my favorite memory.
Very, very nice.
I think meeting all these different people and getting to know all these different people was my favorite thing.
What would you say to a current member who's maybe thinking about taking a leadership role in the chapter? A lot of people are kind of reluctant to get into that, but
Well, I think you'll meet a lot of new people and you'll have some new experiences. Because also when I was the regent, you get together with people on the other chapters. They have meetings where all the different regents from the different chapters in the area get together. I mean, it's a kind of a broadening experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that I had all those experiences. At my age of 93, I don't think I need any experiences, but when you're younger, I think it's good.
I started in DAR, as many of my friends did, because a relative had did it. My aunt came in with, I think, 12 or 13 people. I felt I owed her a payback for all her, like, oh, you walk into every one of these societies, every war that was ever in this country, my family served in, and like all my dad's brothers, all 5 of them. So, having that handed to me, I did feel I had to get it back to her. It's a group of people who lean on each other for support in many areas. With some it's church, with some it's other societies, with some, but in DAR, these people have helped each other so much over the years that they've become to rely on it. I really strongly recommend that they seek the person or position or committee that they're interested in, and in doing so, they become an assistant to that person, so they learn the position. You don't want to just be thrown in, oh, hi, I'm, the chairman of this, or I'm an officer. If you work with the prior person, even though you're going to do it different when you do it, you learn so many inside little details of each little teeny thing. One of the things that I recommend to new people, if they don't already have a subscription to our DAR magazine, which a lot don't, not only does the chapter get credit for the number of subscriptions, but I know people that buy them for other places, dentist's office, doctor's office, things to, and especially any history teacher in any junior high, high school, college around should be receiving the information from our source for the history of the revolution. But what I want to mention on this for new members wanting to get more involved and find out what we're about and do stuff, this magazine comes with another magazine that has all of the national committees, and it has, you could read about what they do and how, the service they do for other people. And that's really what we are as a service organization. We're giving back. I think one of the things about joining DAR is I have made some of the deepest, longest friends. Some of my best friends now, in the last 15 years, are in Florida, Minnesota, New York, Texas, Colorado, Arizona. It's just, they're not just next door. Mm-hmm. And these are long and deep relationships now. I mean, we've traveled together. We've done tours together that had nothing to do with DAR. What do you think we talked about on the trips and tours? DAR. My husband has been pretty tolerant of that in our travel when we go with DAR people. One of the things that people ask is, did you just jump in and be regent, or did you go through a bunch of different offices? I remember when I began, I think I was on the board the whole time. Every year a different, every 2 years a different position, because they used to be like the librarian and historian on the board to teach people how to be the other officers. Going through the different positions showed me different things. One of my best memories as regent, oh wow, is when we had the colonial luncheon. my grandkids, everybody's grandkids are amazing to grandma, but they used to run the prizes. So when we had the drawings, they would run the prizes out to whoever won. And the chapter kind of watched them grow up. And of course, they're both in college now and not doing that. But they were little tykes. And the fact that I had a colonial attire thing, they each wore them at their school on, I don't know if it was Columbus Day or one of those, but they wore the coat with the brass buttons and then explained that they are related to somebody in the Revolutionary War. And it just made such a difference with their classmates. And they could ask questions about it. The number one most important thing about DAR is that we as women own that building in Washington, D.C. Totally funded, operated, managed, totally run that. Is one of the premier buildings, right there, practically touching our Capitol, the White House, practically right there on top of it. I think that's a very important thing because women have come so far from where we had no say and no word. I think members need to know that we have chapters overseas. And that's, again, where that magazine in there talks about the overseas chapters, because you could be a member of every one of those for very, very little. And it really supports them. So when my niece was stationed, when they were stationed in Germany, they were in a DAR chapter. When they were in Okinawa, they were in Guam, they were in a DAR chapter that didn't make them feel so isolated and alone on a military base. It was just such an honor when I was regent to be able to attend these other chapter meetings and see how they do. Thank you.
I was regent between 2012 and 2014, 2 years. And when did I join? April 9th, 2005. That was the day I received my number. And Janet Vogel, chapter registrar, guessed that was going to happen. I was working full-time as a teacher, and she arranged, if I got my number, which I ended up doing, I could be inducted on April 9th, because Wednesday in May, I couldn't come to the meeting, I worked. I'd have to wait till September to be inducted, and at that time, that just seemed so long to wait to be inducted. In 1965, I was given the DAR Good Citizen as a high school senior. And the $500 I got for the scholarship paid for my first year at North Texas State University. I didn't realize at the time, neither did my mother, that we could have joined DAR at that time. We had no idea. Jump forward to 2004, I was teaching Sunday school with Betty Eddington, who's also a member, and I asked her about DAR. Neither one of us could figure out how I knew she was a member because we'd never talked about it. Sunday school, but not DAR. She invited me to the Colonial Luncheon. The ball started rolling and I have been involved since. I wanted to find more ways for service. Service was what attracted me to the organization. When I was a teacher, department chair over at Torrance High School, I considered my role as a teacher in service. I didn't feel like that I was going to impart this great knowledge that they had to absorb and take with them. I felt like I had to meet with them where they were, and we worked together, and I used my talents, my knowledge with them to move them along the path of their life journey. It wasn't power. It was a matter of service. And that's how I have been considering what I do with DAR and what led me to be involved. I started out with committee work. my love was scholarships. Regent Nancy Gunther asked me to be scholarship chair, and I said yes, having no idea what I was going to do. But I trusted her, and from there I joined committees, very active in the Colonial Luncheon Committee, and then it moved to second vice regent, first vice regent, and I went on to being district DAR Good Citizen rep for District 13, and then secretary of District 13, state chair for the councils, Southern Council. Came back to the chapter as chapter secretary. All in service. It's amazing what a group of women can do together with a common vision. I felt like my time as regent was being kind of an ambassador, because there were times where I represented this group of women at a memorial service. Drive to Whittier, I would be the only one from the chapter. State conferences, DAR Continental Congress in Washington, D.C. I was an ambassador, and I kept my eyes and ears open for new ideas for our chapter. Always bringing back that. And so the memories of the people I met are just phenomenal. Participate in a committee that represents your particular interest, not necessarily somebody else's, your particular interests and talents. Attend meetings and activities when possible. This helps you meet women who are sharing the same interests. You build relationships. And if you're going to be a leader, an officer, I suggest that you do that, because you're building relationships. And when you get into more responsibility, those relationships are with you. The group goes, you kind of go as a group together. When you leave Continental Congress, you are filled with a spring of energy that gives you ideas that you never knew existed. You connect to a web of women who share the same love for God, home, and country. And that song is my prayer for my country and my home. That's one of the words, some of the words. I thank God for his grace and love wherever I may roam. That was the song, but and so that gave us national recognition when I was just saying thank you to the chapter for letting me be a delegate. It was magical.
I started learning genealogy under my grandmother Gilmore and my father's mother. And I think that she really wanted to be in DAR. She was a member of the Texas State Historical Society for a while. And she did know our Confederate veteran. So she had a lot of information on the family firsthand. What cinched me on becoming regent was Albertine said to me that I didn't have to follow anyone's act because I was afraid of that. I was rather raised as a follower. So it was a big jump for me into regent. She said, just think about what you would like to do. And this is what I would tell a predecessor of mine or anyone's. Think about what you would like to do, who would you like to help? The events I've gone through, including the chapter master report. Everybody dreads that, but Mary showed me how we could get through it in one day. And it is like a building program. The more you do it, the more comfortable you are with it. The Colonial Luncheon is still my favorite. The California State Conference, that is very worthwhile. That you get to meet people from all over the state, and everybody has a lot of suggestions, and you get to meet speakers, the DAR speakers.
And then, of course, you're also have been for many years very involved in the Redondo Beach Veterans Task Force.
Yes, that Fran Bach introduced me to, and I just carried on. And all of our people have been so busy that it's something that I could do, and something that gives me a great deal of enjoyment. The ladies and gentlemen of the task force are very constructive, and the growth of the Veterans Day and Memorial Day programs has been continually upward in the last 6 years.
Actually, it was my daughter who contacted DAR to see, because she lived in Washington, D.C. at the time, and to see what it would be involved in becoming a member of the DAR. And that was because the young man she was going with, who happens to be her husband now, his family belonged to some organization in Washington, D.C. where if you had a person who worked as an aide for Washington, then you could be part of this membership in this group. And so his older brother was the member. His dad didn't want to be there. So that's why I think she wanted to see about the DAR. And so then when they contacted Kitty, and then she contacted me. And I said, okay. And then she said, well, you might as well try too. Your daughter doesn't have to be the only one. So I said, okay, we'll do it. I had kind of worked up the line, which was kind of an accidental thing too, because Kitty told me at one point, she said, oh, you need to be second vice regent. You only have to do one thing all year. And I said, you're sure? Just one thing? And she said, oh yeah, just one thing. Well, little did I know that meant I was doing something every single month for an entire year to get the luncheon together, And then after I did that, then I just moved up line. But I was not really going to be regent. I really wasn't interested because I didn't think I knew enough. I was still too new. And we were in a meeting with two tables, and people were sitting around them. And we were all talking about what was going on. And Beth Collier was the regent at the time. And so everybody was saying, well, Pat, you ought to do this. You ought to become, first vice regent so you can become regent. And I said, no, I don't think so. And so then Beth said, well, I'll be sure and help you. I'll help you all the time. Don't you worry. And nobody else was willing. So I said, oh, okay, I'll be first vice regent. Anyway, so that's how I started going through the line and became regent. I really liked the colonial luncheon thing that we did because it was, because that was what my job was as second vice regent, but still, it was just fun to be there and to get everybody involved and try to get things going. And it was just fun. I really enjoyed that part.
What would you say to current members who are thinking about taking a leadership role in the chapter?
Oh, I think it's really great. It's one of those things where you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, I don't know if I can do that, or if I want to or whatever. And it does take time. But on the other hand, you get to know the members so much better. And you know yourself then too. You learn a lot of the things that you can do that you had no concept of, And then it also made a difference when you would visit the conferences. Because I went to the conferences and they recognized the regents. And the regents had jobs as far as making sure that the speakers who represented your chapter did their thing in the amount of time that they had to do their reports. And it was really fun. I really enjoyed that part too. And it was fun also to go to those things because they had all this stuff you could buy if you wanted. Which, of course, I did.
2 additional members of El Redondo who are past regents were not able to be recorded. However, they certainly need to be included. Barbara served as regent from 1983 to 1985. Barbara and her family moved out of the area after she served as regent and settled in Bakersfield, where she joined a chapter there. She then served as chaplain 2002 to 2004 and recording secretary 2007 to 2010 at that chapter, then eventually moved back to the South Bay and rejoined El Redondo in 2014. Barbara hasn't been able to be an active participant recently, but she has contributed to the chapter in other ways, such as donating a beautiful colonial gown to the chapter. While regent, the chapter had a star dedicated in its name and received a constellation map. Sue Ann joined El Redondo in 1991, along with her daughter, Linda Cochran. She served as chapter regent from 1996 to 1998, as chaplain from 2014 to 2016, and from 2018 to 2020, and as District 13 chaplain from 2018 to 2020. Jackie said, almost immediately after I was elected regent in 2020, Sue Ann, knowing I was very new and lacked knowledge of the chapter's history and traditions, called me several times with extremely detailed and helpful information, especially about the duties of the chaplain. Without her guidance, I'm not sure how well events like the Green Hills Veterans Day ceremony would have gone. Since then, she has called me up to educate me about other chapter practices, which again have been very valuable. Since Sue Ann was so helpful to me, I wrote a member profile on her, her daughter Linda, and granddaughter Amy, who are also members of El Redondo. What I discovered very quickly is that Sue Ann will talk freely about the chapter and its needs, but due to her natural humility, she will not talk about herself very much at all. Sadly, we lost 2 beloved regents within the past year, Beth Collier and Albertine Bellows. They were major contributors to the chapter for many years and will be greatly missed. Beth Collier served 2 separate terms as regent, 2004 to 2006 and 2016 to 2018. A member profile story on her can be found in the November 2021 edition of our newsletter. In addition to chapter regent, Beth served as District 9 director and was elected to the status of honorary chapter regent in 2013. Katrina Cullum is also a member of the chapter, as was Beth's mother, Helen Ince. Beth was all business at meetings and never had to raise her voice to keep control of the meeting, but she was also always smiling. Beth got Children of the American Revolution going when she was the chapter regent. Frances Booth and Mary Haig remember Beth as someone who was always willing to help out where needed. Members remember Beth as a strong, capable leader, but with kindness, friendliness, and a clear love for DAR, its purpose, and its members. Albertine joined NSDAR in 1994 and served as regent from 1998 to 2000. She was also a very active member and supported St. Francis Episcopal Church, the primary meeting location for the chapter for many years. Martha Burnham Hanley attended one of the church's big antique fairs that Albertine was running and knew right away that Albertine would be able to take a major role in the chapter. One of Albertine's favorite memories was when she attended Continental Congress as El Redondo's regent and ran into Martha, who was then serving as organizing secretary general for NSDAR. Martha was with other NSDAR officials, and she introduced Albertine to them as her regent. That clearly meant a great deal to Albertine. Albertine's sons, Harry and Jamie, have been longtime supporters of the chapter, and Albertine and Jamie have printed and mailed the newsletters to members for many years, as well as printing the yearbooks. Albertine was elected honorary chapter regent in 2013. El Redondo has 13 living past regents, all of whom are still chapter members or associate members. El Redondo wouldn't be what it is without our dedicated active members. They have a strong sense of service, patriotism, love of history and our ancestors, and a commitment to educating our youth and passing on the love of country and of history. They also like to have some fun. And what would a colonial luncheon be without some lovely outfits? Our colonial luncheons serve several important purposes by giving members a chance to honor their ancestors, get together with friends for some wonderful conversations, while at the same time raising funds for our scholarships and other worthwhile causes. In February 2023, El Redondo will celebrate its 56th Colonial Luncheon. They began as potluck luncheons where members could dress up in colonial dresses, enjoy each other's company, do some fundraising, and play some bridge afterwards. Over time, the size of the gathering got too big for their meeting location, and members got a little tired of making up big potluck dishes to bring. So the decision was made to move the event to a venue better suited for large groups, where they could pay someone else to cook. The silent auction and choose-your-own raffle got bigger and more complex. Entertainment has ranged from performances of historical figures to singers of historical music and other musicians. One thing that remains is the members who love to put on those gowns. Many members have had the opportunity to attend district events, state councils and conferences, and the National Continental Congress. Those special events help remind us that we are a part of a larger organization that does a great deal of good across the country. El Redondo has supported many different programs over the years, but a few have remained a high emphasis for a very long time, specifically DAR Service for Veterans. The chapter has held or participated in Memorial Day and Veterans Day ceremonies for very many years. We have also provided personal items, books, magazines, and hundreds of thank you cards on various holidays to patients at the West Los Angeles and Long Beach VA hospitals. In the past couple of years, the chapter has had speakers, has made donations, and given mail call thank you cards to support Honor Flight Southland. In April of this year, we attended our first Welcome Home event at LAX, along with DAR members from other chapters. In 2020 and 2021, the chapter sponsored wreaths for Wreaths Across America, 258 in 2021. And last December, we attended our first wreath placement event on graves at Los Angeles National Cemetery and Green Hills Memorial Park. Last Christmas, we also participated in the Veterans Affairs Voluntary Services project called Operation Santa, where we adopted a family. Through our members' donations, we bought, wrapped, and delivered presents to the family, along with a holiday dinner, the total being worth over $800. DAR Project Patriot. The chapter supports and encourages active duty personnel through members' donations of snacks, paperback books, personal toiletries, thank you cards, and other items. Periodically, we get together, pack up the boxes, and mail them to deployed service people. We have contributed to groups of deployed people suggested on the DAR Project Patriot Facebook page and have adopted our own deployed servicewomen. DAR Good Citizens. The chapter has a long-standing partnership with many local high schools in the Good Citizen program. This past year, we had 11 schools submit names of students selected as their DAR Good Citizens. Our chapter essay winner also won at the district level, and she was also awarded El Redondo's $1,000 Good Citizen Scholarship Award. Several of the other good citizens applied for our chapter scholarships, and 4 of them were awarded chapter scholarships. DAR Scholarships. The chapter invites all seniors from local high schools to apply for our chapter scholarships. This year, we were able to award 5 chapter scholarships and the 1 Good Citizen Scholarship of $1,000 each for a total of 6 scholarships. National Defense. The chapter has a very long history of supporting the local high school's junior ROTC programs at Hawthorne High School, Navy JROTC, Redondo Union High School, Marines JROTC, North Torrance High School, Army JROTC, and 2 Sea Cadets programs. Each year, the chapter holds one meeting where those outstanding cadets are recognized with their families and school advisors in attendance. Chapter representatives also attend the year-end award ceremonies at the schools to present the awards again in front of their friends. The chapter started with 34 members. Today, we have 172 members. Over the years, the formality and typical dress for meetings may have changed, but our love of country, our gratitude for past and present military, our interest in securing America's future through better education for children, preserving American history, and promoting patriotism remains as strong today as it did when we began.